And with a big gasp, that is Jon Snow, who is coming back alive in the series Game of Thrones. We're going to be talking about his resurrection scene and why I feel like that was a missed opportunity to show male beauty and transformation. Hi, I'm John of Figurative Arc. Welcome to my channel. I am a visual artist, and I was recently looking back at the Game of Thrones, thinking about all the different issues that were brought up when the series was running, and one of them had to do with the representation of the male body. Even one of the actresses on Game of Thrones, Emily Clark, who played the Queen of Dragons, advocated for us to see more male nudity on this series. And while I feel like male nudity in of itself is a beautiful thing, it really depends on the context in which it's used. And as a photographer who photographs men, I always feel like the purpose behind it would be to show some aspect of a man's humanity, of his vulnerability, and through his vulnerability and shedding all these kind of facades that clothes represent about status and meeting other people's expectations, that he is able to show himself actually as being strong when he does that. And so I think those are important aspects of showing off the male form. I think Game of Thrones has a very questionable history as far as the intentions behind that. But really, when I think of this scene where we have this main character comes back to life and he is set up to be naked and sits up, that we don't see more of him. I think this was probably the most important scene in the series where we should have gotten full frontal male nudity from this resurrection scene, because this scene was symbolic of when we kill our own egos, where we put aside our own ambitions in the service of others, have a transformation that occurs when we do that, when we look towards the other rather than ourself. And this is a beautiful thing. And I think being able to see the naked reality of that would have been a really interesting way of showing off the male form in a way that would serve an artistic purpose. And we got very little of that. We got kind of little hints of nakedness, and I really feel like this was the scene where we needed to see that. And all the other kind of nude scenes with men in Game of Thrones, I thought they just didn't serve that kind of really profound poetic purpose that it would have if we could have seen more of that character naked as he kind of rised and overcame death. That's kind of my thought in general about just the purposes of using nudity in films. I would be interested in hearing your thoughts if you saw Game of Thrones, or what you think as far as how nudity is shown in film, in TV series, men versus women, what the purpose behind it should be. Or maybe you disagree and say there doesn't need to be any purpose at all, and it doesn't really matter what the context is. A lot of different views out there. I like to share my view of how I come to think a certain way, and then I'd like to hear from you. And there's no right or wrong way. It's just lending your perspective and your voice on the channel of how you see these things. I hope you'll leave those comments below. Consider subscribing. Thumbs up really does help the channel. I hope to see you again sometime soon for another video as we explore our voice and how we can be seen and heard. Until then, toodaloo.